Patch 37, the Scribes of Fate is in full swing, and it's time to update my Scalebreaker build. It's been 6 months, and in fairness, not that much has changed with the build, except that I'm using dual daggers and a two-hander. This is a quick build guide. We'll be going over the race, attributes, Munderstones, food, potions, gear, skills, passives, and champion points slottables. The info will be minimal, so I'll only be going over what's necessary. However, do feel free to comment below if you have any questions, need a hand, or if there's anything I could do better. With the intro covered, let's go over the Scalebreaker build. Starting with the race, it doesn't really matter what you use, any stamina based race will work, so either the Red Guard for more sustain, the Khajiit for extra critical damage, an Orc for extra weapon damage, the Wood Elf for sustain and penetration, and also the Dark Elf for rounded stats and weapon and spell damage. For the attributes, we're putting 64 points into stamina, and for our Munderstones, we'll take the Lover Munderstone for extra spell and physical penetration when we're doing content solo, or we'll take the Thief Munderstone for extra critical rating when we're with a group. For our food, we are taking the Artaeum Takeaway Broth to increase our health recovery, max stamina, and stamina recovery. If that's too expensive, we can use the Dubious Cameronian Throne. The stats are slightly lower and it doesn't give health recovery. For the potions, we are using Essence of Weapon Power, which grants us Major Brutality, Major Savagery, Major Endurance, and it will restore some stamina immediately. You can also just pop an Essence of Stamina potion instead. They will give us Major Endurance and restore some stamina immediately. They are your run-of-the-mill default potions that drop from every enemy in the game. They are better than nothing, as potions are free stats. Moving on to the gear now, we're using 7 medium armor pieces on this build, all with the Divine's trait and a stamina enchant. For the jewellery, we are using the Bloodthirsty trait and weapon and damage enchants. For our weapons, we are using dual daggers for our front bar. Our main hand will be Nirnhoned with a poison enchant, and our offhand will be a charged with a fire enchant. For our back bar, we are taking a two-handed greatsword with the infused trait and a weapon damage enchant. Moving on to the sets themselves, starting with the body pieces, which are the chest, waist, hands, legs and feet. Our first choice is a trial set, and it's the Arms of Reliquance set. This set is gotten from Cloudrest, and on veteran difficulty you can get a perfected version, which adds extra stamina to the set. It's a minor increase compared to the unperfected version, so it doesn't matter what version you actually use. The set itself gives us critical chance, minor slayer at all times, and our light and heavy attacks add a stacking damage over time effect to our targets that lasts for 5 seconds and it stacks up to 10 times. If you haven't stepped into a trial or you want to use something else, you can use the Aegis Caller set, which is gotten in the DLC Unhallowed Grave Dungeon. This set adds weapon and spell damage, stamina recovery, and when you do critical damage with a martial melee attack, you'll summon a lesser Aegis for 11 seconds, which will deal bleed damage every 1 second. If you're looking for a little more healing, you could also go with the Briarheart set, which is gotten from Hrothgar overland content such as delves, world bosses, and public dungeons. You can also pick it up at a guild vendor. Briarheart comes with critical chance and maximum stamina, and when you deal critical damage, your weapon and spell damage increases for 10 seconds, and while the effect is active, you'll heal when you do critical damage. For our weapons and our jewellery, we are going with the Pillar of Nirn set, which is gotten from the DLC dungeon Falkreath Hold, which gives us maximum stamina, critical chance, and weapon and spell damage. And when you deal damage, you'll deal bleed damage to the target enemy and enemies near the target, and causing them to take bleed damage for a further 10 seconds. For our monster sets, for our helm and shoulder slots, we have 2 choices. We can use the Bloodspawn set. The helm can be gotten from Spindle Clutch 2 on Veteran and the shoulders from the Undaunted vendors. This set adds stamina recovery, and when we take damage, we have a chance to gain extra ultimate and to increase our resistances by 3601 for 5 seconds. Our second choice is the Stormfist set from Tempest Island. Again, the helm from Veteran difficulty and the shoulder from an Undaunted vendor. Stormfist adds stamina recovery, and when you deal damage, you have a chance to summon a giant fist to close around an enemy, dealing shock damage every 1 second for 3 seconds, to all enemies within 4 meters. When the fist closes, it does a large amount of physical damage. Now for the Ring of the Pale Order, which is gotten from the Antiquity system. When using this, we'll heal for 20% of all the damage we do. We can't be healed by anyone but ourselves, and the healing we do does decrease when we're in groups. The ring will take up a ring slot, so we'll need to wear 1 piece of our jewellery set on either our shoulder or our helm. The slot doesn't matter. We will lose our 2 set bonus from our monster set, but we'll still have the 1 slot bonus. You can stick with Bloodspawn or Stormfist for the 1 piece bonus, or you could also use the Magma Incarnate set. The head is found in the Dreadcellar DLC dungeon on Veteran, and the shoulders are from the Undaunted vendor. Magma Incarnate's 1 set bonus will give us extra magicka and stamina recovery. Lastly is the Maelstrom two-handed sword, which is gotten from Maelstrom Arena, and we'll be using this on our back bar. There is a perfected version from Veteran difficulty which adds extra offensive penetration. It doesn't matter which version we use, as we are more interested in the base effect. which is when dealing damage with critical charge, we cause enemies to bleed for over 10 seconds. If you don't have a Maelstrom two-handed weapon, you can stick with a Pillar of Nirn two-handed weapon. And that's everything for the gear, so let's go over the skills, starting with the front bar. First skill up on the front bar is Venomous Claw, which is more from Searing Strike and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will deal poison damage to an enemy in melee range and will cause the enemy to take poison damage for 24 seconds. The damage from this dot increases over time, so don't spam it. Our second skill is Blood Craze. Morph this from Twin Slashes, which is found in the Dual Wield skill line. This will deal bleed damage and cause the enemy to bleed for 20 seconds, and it also heals us over its duration. Next is Barb Trap, morphed from Trap Beast, and it can be found in the Fighter's Guild skill line. The trap deals bleed damage and causes the enemy to bleed for 20 seconds, and it will also grant us Minor Force. The damage has a higher chance of causing the hemorrhaging status effect. Enemies who trigger the trap can be immobilized for 2 seconds. For the fourth skill on the front bar, we're using Deadly Cloak, morphed from Blade Cloak and found in the Dual Wield skill line. This will give us major evasion for 20 seconds, and every 2 seconds shrapnel will pulse, dealing physical damage to all enemies within a 5 meter radius. Next is Cauterize, morphed from Inferno and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will cause us to fire fireballs at ourselves for 15 seconds, causing us to heal, and while slotted, it will grant us Major Prophecy and Savagery. For the ultimate on the front bar, we are using Flawless Dawnbreaker, morphed from Dawnbreaker and found in the Fighter's Guild skill line. You will deal physical damage to enemies in front of you and additional physical damage over 6 seconds, and after activating, it will increase our weapon and spell damage by 300 for 20 seconds. Moving on to the back bar, and the first skill up is Stampede, morphed from Critical Charge, which is found in the two-handed skill line. You'll charge an enemy and deal physical damage to them and nearby enemies. This is always a critical strike. You'll also leave an AoE under their feet for 15 seconds that deals physical damage. If you have the Maelstrom two-handed weapon equipped, you will also add a bleed effect to the enemies you have hit. Next is Carve, which is more from Cleave, which is found in the two-handed skill line. You'll deal bleed damage to enemies in front of you and cause them to bleed for 12 seconds. Hitting an enemy again will add 10 seconds to the duration, up to a maximum duration of 32 seconds. This also gives us a damage shield that lasts for 6 seconds. Our third skill is Noxious Breath, which is more from Fiery Breath and can be found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will deal poison damage to enemies within range, and they will continue to take poison damage for a further 24 seconds, and it will also apply Major Breach to the enemy's hit. We are also using Volatile Armor, more from Spiked Armor and found in the Draconic Power skill line. We'll spew spikes around us, causing enemies to take magic damage for 20 seconds, giving us Major Resolve, and when enemies attack us from melee range, we'll return some of the damage back to the enemy. Next up is Resolving Vigor, morphed from Vigor and found in the Assault skill line. This will cause you to heal for over 5 seconds, and you'll also gain Minor Resolve. And finally, the ultimate on the back bar is Standard of Might, morphed from Dragonknight Standard and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will place a flag in front of you and deal flame damage for 20 seconds to any enemy standing in it. The standard will also apply Major Maim to enemies. If you or your allies stand near the flag, you'll take 15% less damage and also deal 15% more damage. Any ally near the standard can also activate the Shackle synergy, dealing flame damage to enemies and immobilizing them for 5 seconds. That covers the skills, so let's quickly go over the passives, starting with our class passives. First up is the Ardent Flame skill line. In here we want to take Combustion, Warmth, Searing Heat and Whirlwind Ruin. In the Draconic skill line we'll be taking Iron Skin, Burning Heart, Elder Dragon and Scaled Armor. And in the Earthen Heart skill line we'll only want Battle Roar. We're not using any other Earthen Heart abilities, so the other passives won't work. We are using dual daggers, so we'll take everything in the Dual Wield skill line. These are Slaughter, Dual Wield Expert, Control Fury, Ruffian and Twin Blade and Blunt. Next is the two-handed skill line. Again, we'll take everything. This includes Forceful, Heavy Weapons, Balanced Blade, Follow-Up and Battle Rush. We are wearing full medium armor, so we'll take everything in the medium armor skill line as well, which are Dexterity, Windwalker, Improved Sneak, Agility and Athletics. We are using Fighter's Guild skills, so we'll want passives from the Fighter's Guild skill line as well. In here, we'll want Intimidating Presence, Slayer, Banish the Wicked and Skill Tracker. We don't need the Bounty Hunter passive unless we plan on participating in Cyrodiil. Next up is the Undaunted passives. In here we'll be taking Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. This next one is optional and can be found in the Assault skill line, and it is Continuous Attack. We only need 1 point in this to gain Major Gallop. We get nothing extra for adding a second point unless we plan on doing PvP. Moving on to the racial passives, these are specific to your race, so you'll want to grab everything. Have a quick read over them so you know what they do and understand what benefits and advantages you have. I have passives for the stamina based races on screen as we speak, but no matter what race you use, take all the passives. And lastly, one more optional passive which I would and have always classed as necessary, and its medicinal use, which is found in the alchemy skill line. This causes our potions to last much longer and makes potions outlast their cooldown, so you can always have a potion active. So that's it for all the passives, so we'll move on to the champion point slotables, beginning in the warfare tree. In here we want Wrathful Strikes to increase weapon and spell damage, we want Fighting Finesse to increase our critical damage and healing, we also want Deadly Aim to increase our single target damage attacks, and we also want to grab Thaumaturge to increase our damage over time attacks. In the fitness tree skill line we want Boundless Vitality to increase our health, we're also taking Fortify to increase our armour, as well as Rejuvenation for increased sustain, and we'll also be taking Bloody Renewal to help get back stamina when we kill an enemy. In the craft tree skill line, it'll most likely be down to your own choice, as nothing here really impacts the build, and it's mostly down to your playstyle. But when I'm soloing, I like to take Treasure Hunter to increase the quality of items I find in chests, I also like to grab Rationeer to increase my food duration, and I also like to grab Liquid Efficiency to give myself a small chance to not consume a potion or poison when I use it. I also like to take Steed's Blessing to increase my out of combat movement speed and to get around a bit quicker. Hopefully this guide has helped you in some way, or maybe it inspired your own build a bit and gave you some ideas, and if it did, hit like on the video and subscribe. If you have any thoughts, questions or suggestions, comment below, and if you like MMOs and want to see these builds in action, follow me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/dyinglegacy. I'm live 3 times a week. As always, I appreciate the support, thanks for watching the video, take care of yourselves, and as always, keep being awesome.